Hey y'all, and welcome back to our Morning Manna series, Set Apart. We're highlighting some key biblical figures who model for us what it means to be set apart to do God's will. Today I want to focus on one of the most dedicated and responsible leaders in Israel's history. He was key in the establishment of the monarchy in Israel. He helped to unite the tribes under one banner, and he anointed the greatest king in Israel's history. He spoke to God as a 5-year-old boy, and perhaps his most recognized accomplishment is that he and I share the same name. I want to talk about Samuel, the prophet. Samuel's mother, Hannah, had great difficulty in getting pregnant. She was greatly distressed by this, so she went to Shiloh, the place where the Ark of the Covenant was, to pray to God. Now, in this period of Israel's history, the word of God was rare, as it says in 1 Samuel chapter 3. Shiloh was the place people came to worship God, but the nation was still divided into their own tribes. So there wasn't much unity among them. The only unifying aspect, really, of Israel at that time was their worship of Yahweh. The Levitical priesthood was responsible to hold the Israelites accountable to do this very thing, and their head priest was a guy named Eli. But he had no real desire to uphold God's will for his life. Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were also priests, but they too were wicked and rebellious. They did despicable acts before God, and God rejected them because of it. When Hannah goes to beseech God to give her a son, Eli doesn't recognize that she's praying. He thinks she's drunk. No wonder the word of God is rare. The priests, the people responsible to point the nation back to God, aren't submitted to God themselves. How could they point others towards him? This is the spiritual environment that Samuel was born into. Everyone doing what is right in their own eyes, including the priests. Of course, God grants Hannah's request, and she dedicates Samuel back to God by placing him back at the temple at Shiloh for him to become a priest himself. It is there where the boy Samuel falls in love with the presence of God. And here's where I want to camp. What a dichotomy. Eli has been lifted up to shepherd people back to God, but he has no real love for God. His position as priest demands it, but he doesn't have it. On the other hand, you have this 5-year-old boy, Samuel, who falls asleep next to the Ark of the Covenant because that's where God is. It says in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18, "But Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing a linen ephod." So if Eli has the position and title of priest, but he doesn't minister before the Lord, and if Samuel does not have the title or position, but he has a close relationship with God, who's really the priest? Or rather, who's qualified to be the priest? Samuel spends most of his formative years at the foot of the ark because he wants to be with God. Samuel loves God, and he hungers to be in his presence. In my mind's eye, I don't see that Samuel's motive was to use this relationship to get greater recognition amongst his peers or to get into a higher position. I think his motives were totally pure. He wasn't trying to spend time with God to get to the next thing. He just wanted to be with God because he loved him. Let's read 1 Samuel chapter 3. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was lying down in his own place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called to Samuel, and he said, "Here I am." And Samuel ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Lie down again." So he went and lay down. God calls to Samuel 3 times, and after Samuel recognized his voice, he answered back, "Speak, for your servant is listening." At the age of 5, God chose Samuel over Eli, the high priest, to be his mouthpiece, because God knew that Samuel would do his will. It didn't matter that Samuel didn't have the position or title of priest. It didn't matter about Samuel's age. God qualifies those who are dedicated to him. To be set apart is to hunger for God's presence. Samuel didn't have a relationship with God to be qualified. He had a love for God, and so he was qualified. These are 2 different motives. This is my challenge to you. Spend time with God. Make your relationship about being, not about doing or becoming or getting or offloading. Let it be that you love God and you want to spend time with Him. Once that is a reality, God will use you in unbelievable ways. I'll see you tomorrow.